This is the From the Bench podcast presented by Projectile Warehouse with Taylor Wiese. And our first guest on our first episode is going to be none other than Mr. Rusty.
How are you, mate?
I'm good, mate. How are you?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Oh, mate, thanks for teeing this up. I think this whole sort of project has been a bit of a brainchild between both you and I.
Yeah.
I'm thankful for you sort of bringing me on board and giving me the capacity to do this, man.
No, I'm excited. I'm excited. So let's tell everyone what's going on, what the plan is with From the Bench.
Okay. So From the Bench kind of came about as far as I was sort of pretty new to reloading only a couple of months ago, and then got talking to you and have started my own reloading journey. And then we were having conversations around how I was surprised at how much knowledge was out there to be found as far as reloading goes, and how if you were smart enough to sift through that, it actually wasn't overly difficult getting started in this. Like, all the resources were out there, but we sort of discussed how I felt like the difficult thing was sifting through that and finding where to grab what resource and bring it to the one place. And so then we started talking about, well, wouldn't it be cool to start up a podcast and a YouTube channel, which is what we're doing with the Projectile Warehouse YouTube channel. The Projectile Warehouse YouTube channel's maybe starting as more of your basic beginner entry into it, and then this podcast is going to be a platform for us and other top shooters to explore the more in-depth, technical, deeper side of reloading, but just have that home base where people could come to as a resource to, deepen their knowledge, and also just enjoy listening to what other reloaders are doing, what calibers they're reloading, the more technical side of it, because that was something that I enjoyed from other podcasts anytime they got into the specifics about what they were running and, how it had worked for them. I enjoyed the gear side of it. Yeah. So we just thought, hey, let's do something with that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been an exciting process to get here. So, yeah, as you mentioned about the Projectile Warehouse YouTube channel, so this will actually exist on that YouTube channel. But we wanted that format which we've had with the other podcast I've done, where you've got this long format of sort of extended period of time, so you can actually cover a topic a lot more in depth, go a lot deeper than trying to do a 2-minute or 3-minute wrap up to keep people's attention on YouTube, where this can be played while people are reloading.
Yeah,
funny enough,
or driving a tractor like I've been doing.
Driving a tractor. Yeah, and so so this is the opportunity where the YouTube channel, certainly initially for the first 100 videos, is going to be pretty top level, pretty getting started sort of stuff. Yeah. While this isn't this is also for beginners, but it's also got that opportunity to go a lot deeper. Yeah. And so I remember this also sort of came about initially from when COVID kicked in. We started the Impact Dynamics live channel, and we often had Steve Hurt, but a couple other guys come on the Thursday reloading night, and that was probably regularly our most popular shows.
Yeah, definitely.
And the joy in that, because it was about an hour-long show, we were able to get pretty deep. And sometimes we dropped in the numbers because we got very deep. Yeah. But for the guys who stuck around,
they get something out of it.
They got a lot out of it, or the feedback was they got heaps out of it, and information that was like, man, I don't know. And I personally got heaps out of it because the guys on the other side of the screen knew a ton about what they were talking about. And I think that you agree that the reloading world is so varied and so many options that you can literally talk for days and days and days on the same topic and with different people and come to sort of all sorts of conclusions. And it's not that they're like one guy's wrong and everyone else is, or one guy's right and everyone else is wrong. It's a matter of there's multiple ways to make it work.
You got to find what suits you, and it's exciting hearing other people's method of how they got to the same result that maybe you got to with a different method. It's like kind of I just enjoy keeping an open mind about it and listening to other people's opinion on it.
Yeah, no, so I'm excited. So this is a wonderful forum to be able to delve into that. Not that we're going to stop talking reloading on the Precision Shooting podcast, but this is that dedicated forum and sort of to track your journey about sort of how you want to develop and get further down that pathway.
And I think it's probably going to sit in a format where we're gonna run with from the bench, and I think that whole idea is going to be basically phone calls that you make when you're in the reloading room, and you're trying to answer a question or you're trying to solve a puzzle.
Get out of trouble.
You get out of trouble, yeah. You got something that's not working, and you call a mate or you call someone more experienced than you, and you have that phone call with them. This is kind of going to be that area where we do that. We make those phone calls to those guys that you want to hear from. You want to hear what they're doing and how they're doing it, and do it that way. So
yeah, no, I like that, and it certainly is that opportunity where, and that is going to be quite literally the podcast. Yeah. You will, a lot of the times your guests will be on the phone, and so but I think that really would be interesting to hear, and it'd be nice to have a bunch of those guys on speed dial when you are reloading, and so hopefully this can sort of bring that.
This is all just a big ploy for me to have a wealth of knowledge from all the top reloaders in Australia.
I kind of picked that up. I kind of worked out, now I know what Taylor's doing.
Yeah. Or maybe not even just Australia. I basically wanted to just get to Eric Cortina and have him on speed dial for all my questions, and so this is the way to get there.
This is the way.
You've told me you can hook me up. Mr.
I make
EC.
no promises, but I'm sure you're a charming young man. I'm sure you make your way into all sorts of people's DMs.
Oh, we'll see. We'll see how we go. Wouldn't be the first time.
Perfect, man. So, look, give us a bit of background on your reloading journey, I guess.
Yeah. So my reloading journey, well, I guess the start of it is I've had other people reload for me. So I've been a shooter and a hunter for a long time. I grew up on a farm and still live on that farm, actually. And so I've always been around shooting and hunting. And for my 21st, I said I didn't want a party. I wanted a rifle. So that's when I got.
That's rad.
Yeah. So that's when Dad got me my first sort of designated rifle that was for me. Didn't want to run factory ammo with it. Knew that I wanted to reload because we had like a close family friend who's sort of one of Dad's mates' fathers, and he's been like just reloading for years. He's that dude that's like he reloads everyone in the district's rifles, like he's got every book of every gun, and he just goes into it and goes, oh, such and such's load is, and then he looks it up and he's got it there. So I knew from the start that I wanted him to develop a load for my rifle because that's sort of what he did for Dad's rifles. It was all sort of part of the process. So I never intended on running factory ammo even from the start. Not that I'm against that. Like I think factory ammo is a great option and becoming more and more viable as the factory ammo gets better. But I was always interested in the reloading, but didn't have the time or the knowledge to do it myself. So had someone else doing it for me. So I saw the rewards of, taking a gun that wasn't shooting that all that well and tuning it and tweaking it to the point where, I was happy with it for my hunting rig. So I'd always had a bit of an understanding of reloading, but not to the detail you need to be able to do it yourself. I sort of, had watched him do it and things like that. And then it wasn't until, well, like you spoke about, like the COVID thing, and I'd been living in Sydney for 4 years and then moved back to the farm just pre-COVID and was working, on a vineyard there. So I was in a tractor a lot of the time, spending a lot of time sitting in the tractor. And I found your podcast, and I found Modern Day Sniper and VP Precision and a whole heap of other podcasts, and basically just started listening to everything from the start, and got the PRS bug and got the precision shooting bug, and that catches us all pretty quickly, and thought, oh man, I want to dive into this. I really want to do it. And so I started, buying the components, the scope and the rifle and the different things to do it. And originally had thought, no, I want to stay with factory ammo. I'm not going to dive into that whole other realm of, buying the reloading kit. I'm just going to get the tools I need for the job, and I'm going to just run with factory ammo for at least a year. I wanted to run a season of PRS just on factory ammo. And my rifle did shoot factory ammo really well. I was running the Hornady 140 ELDM matches, and it was shooting it awesome. But I hit a point where, because I was doing a lot of shooting because I'm on the farm, I was able to shoot pretty regularly, and I ended up buying a chronograph because I magneto speed one. I just I was buying all the bits and pieces as you do, and I was running stuff over it, and I was realizing that if I wasn't willing to buy a huge amount of that ammo in a big lot, the lot to lot consistency with my speeds was not where I wanted it to be, because I was very quickly able to get a platform and get myself out to sort of 600 meters pretty easily on a decent, not a huge target, like a pretty small target. I was like, wow, like this isn't too difficult with the right components. And then when I wanted to go further than that And when I wanted to do it regularly, which meant I was going through more ammo, which meant I went from, one lot onto the next lot of ammo, I was like, hang on a second, like, what's changed here? And it's just that lot to lot consistency that, wasn't giving me the consistency that I wanted. And so I went, I think I'm going to have to look at reloading as a viable option here. And then I dove into it head first and went for it. So
what did you start with?
I had a mate up sort of 20 minutes away from me that had bought a whole heap of reloading gear and never used it. He'd bought it maybe nearly 10 years ago for something that he was building and never got into it. So I actually managed to pick up some stuff a little bit cheaper than, I think it's the Lee breech lock classic cast, the bigger one of it. And it just had like a Hornady powder thrower, and I was going to use Dad's old beam scales. He's got those, they're Lyman, but they were made by, is it O-House or however you say? Anyway, so like they're decent beam scales. So like there was some stuff sitting around that Dad had. So I kind of combined a few bits and pieces and had what I needed there. Went a little bit ham with the dies, knew that I wanted to go the bushing die setup. And this was all based on my personality is I do a lot of reading and I really dive into something. And I was always that way we raced national level motocross for years when I was younger. And I was always the kid that was really keen on like what difference a different set of tires could make, or what difference a different, setup on my suspension would make to the bike. And I was that kid that liked the parts and I liked the stuff that went with the sport. I also liked doing it, but I liked the stuff that went with it. So when I got into shooting, obviously first came the rifle and the scope and everything, but then more so the reloading got very specific when I really dove into, all right, so what are the top guys using and how are they doing it, and what are the different methods around reloading and things like that. So I wanted to go bushing dies. I wanted to run and expand a mandrel. I wanted to do all the little bits and pieces that maybe not too necessary, that may be a little bit more complicated than it needed to be for a first time reloader, but I wanted to do all that. And so I did. So I went for it. I didn't spend huge money. Like I'm still throwing powder and trickling up on a beam scale. So like I'm not running an auto charge setup yet, and it's painfully slow, but it's painfully precise. It's pretty accurate. I've been really happy with those results. So I knew that I would eventually want to get into your FX auto charges, like your top tier stuff, like a lot of the guys are running and things like that. So I knew that's where I'd want to go. So I sort of just started with what I had, knowing that there's a direction that I'm heading. But there was a few bits I wasn't willing to compromise on, and that was, really good dies, really good seating die, really good resizing die. I went with Widden stuff out of the States just because there wasn't any Redding S-types or anything available in Australia at the time when I got it. It was all just really hard to get my hands on. I went hard there, and I think the little expander mandrel has been a bit of that's something that I've noticed that I'm doing that a lot of other top reloaders, some are and some aren't. Like there's a lot of mates that are getting really good results that are like, oh, what do you mean you run an expander mandrel? Their neck tension is just set by their sizing die and the ball that drags through. And so that was a little thing that I made a choice on. I had a mate suggest it, and then when I started reading up on it on your Sniper's Hide or your precision, rifle forums and things like that, I started realizing, it makes sense to me, because when I had the virgin brass, I wanted to develop a load. I bought the sort of 300 pieces of virgin brass, and I wanted to develop a load with that rather than shoot it all and then start developing a load. I wanted to develop a load and have it pretty close. So then I was like, neck tension's going to play a bit of a part in that. So if I set the neck tension with an expander mandrel from the virgin brass and then redo it each time, it should be pretty consistent across the board. And little things like that were just choices I made based on things I was reading, and it's ended up working out really well. And then the big thing I think has been not so much even how you reload or the choices you make in what components to use, but your process in how you test it and how you run a ladder test or run a seating depth test, and how you decide to go about that rather than just guessing and throwing something in there. And I'm in a fortunate position where I can load in the shed and then, drive 100 meters down in the paddock, as you've seen at my place, and then jump straight on the range. So I didn't have to load up 50 rounds at a whole heap of different things. I could load 5 at a time and keep playing with something until I kind of got it close. And then, so that's been a big one for me, was identifying that, finding that seeding depth has been really critical, and chasing that seeding depth node. And then once I'm sort of locking down on that, then, doing my ladder test across a whole heap of different charges to find the node and find the flat spot, and being really clear and clinical on how I go about testing those parameters to find, where I want to be. And those same tests work across multiple different rifles. Like we've now had, Maxwell was trying to find a load, and he was, sort of a little bit all over the place because he hadn't had the time to, try out just one sort of set of components or anything. And so he came down to our place, and I was like, well, let's run through this how I did with mine. And we within a couple of hours, we were very easily had a load for him that absolutely shot lights out, and then took him out to 1 kilometre for his first time, and the little punk put a round on it on his second round, and I couldn't hit the thing for 10, 15 shots or something. So yeah, those methodologies are out there for people to read about and to learn from other people that know way more than I do. Like I'm a beginner in this, and I'm going to be open about that I'm so infant in this, but I feel like I've been able to find the resources I need to get me to where I want to be. And we sort of want to start sharing that with everyone else about, hey, look to this guy, lean on this guy's YouTube video, you want to set up a resizing die and bump the shoulder tooth out. Eric Cortina has a video on YouTube that shows you exactly how to do it, and you follow that video, and it should work if you're doing it properly. It worked for me, and it should work for other people. So, that's a quick overview, I guess, of my journey. There has been some issues and problems along the way, but
and there continually will be. But I love that. I love that attitude of the really researching and developing into it, because a lot of guys take up shooting and really enjoy that, and then sort of reloading comes as a package deal because what they want to get into, and then they're not super excited about the reloading side of things, but they know they need to do it, and they sort of do it because it's part of it. I'm very much talking about myself here, and so I reload because I need to reload. And for either cartridges I run or to get the accuracy that you want, you do that, but you haven't necessarily got that additional passion to you don't
shoot one whole groups.
Well, I guess what I'm saying is that because you get a lot of joy from what I know of the actual process of reloading and testing, and people love that process. I much prefer the hitting the target bit. And which is absolutely fine, because that's just their different personalities, and that's why I think this is going to suit you sitting in this chair doing that side of things immensely, and you'll ask awesome questions of your guests that perhaps others wouldn't have thought of. So because you'll have a deep curiosity, you already have a deep curiosity of how to get better with this and do that. It's awesome that you are at that point in your journey where you're a competent reloader. You can make good ammo. You can show people how to make good ammo. But there is this massive world that is still untapped of all these things you can do, and some stuff that some people will swear by has no effect for you, and vice versa. And I think that'll be fascinating to see things that you discover and find out, and share that with your listeners, as well as some of the information that gets sort of drawn out of your guests as well.
Yeah, and that's what I'm really excited about, because like I said to you, man, I've never even used an annealer yet. I haven't had to trim cases yet. Like I'm that infant into it. It's only been a couple of months, so I've done what I needed to do to get the results I wanted very quickly. But then there's going to be the longevity of it, and speeding the process up, and finding about, getting rid of processes maybe that I'm doing that I don't need to do, and finding that out from people who have been doing it for longer and have figured out what works and what doesn't work. And you've just jumped back into reloading.
I have.
Yeah. And so how long had it been since you'd reloaded?
I'm trying to think. It would definitely have been three years. I'm pretty confident because the last time I reckon I reloaded was for my 338. We were actually out at a property trying to shoot 2,000 meters, and so we were reloading on there.
Yeah.
No internet access, no great data, not a lot of history of data with that gun with the powder I was running.
What components were you running to do that?
I think I ended up using Sierra Match Kings 300 grainers in 2225 powder.
Yep.
And that's in Federal Gold Match primers because that's what I was using, Magnum ones.
Yeah. Do you remember how much powder was going on there?
I could not tell you a
whole
thing
heap?
about it because whatever we did, it was literally just to achieve that purpose that day. When we were doing a bit like you, like load 5, go out the back door, shoot 100 meters, like it's good enough, and then go out to try and shoot distance. Nothing about it was ideal. Yeah. Nothing about it would be what I would recommend anyone to try. So let's not delve too much into it. But I think prior to that, I had a friend of mine who graciously did a lot of reloading for me because we were pretty flat out at that time. And so it's probably been 4 years, maybe 4.5 years since I really sort of on a regular basis reloaded. Yeah. And I tell you what, it's a fascinating process getting back into it. Because I was never a stunning reloader. I did what I needed and knew a bit about what I needed to do and those things. Yeah. I knew a reasonable amount, some fairly in-depth processes and stuff. But I'm now having this issue where I remember too much, but I might be missing key points. And so I've got this wealth of knowledge that I can draw on, but I'm actually worried that I remember points 1, 2, 4, and 7, and I forget that I have missed the others in between, and I'm like, so I'm actually ultra cautious reloading right now because I'm just like I need to make sure I remember every single step of that. Otherwise, I might miss one little step of this more complex process. You know what? I'm just not going to do that process. Let's pretend we don't know that process.
Yeah, okay.
That part of it. So
and bring it back to a more simple baseline.
So I've gone extremely simple, extremely basic on getting back into it, and literally just the bare minimum of putting the powder in and primers and the even talked about that out of order. Putting the primers in, putting the powder in, and putting the projectiles in, and going and shooting. Very sort of basic stuff. I very much feel like I'm restarting, but with this knowledge, I have to just make sure is correct and up to date.
Yeah. And what are you at the moment? What are you loading for? What is the rifle that sort of spiked your interest or your need to get back into this? And give us a bit of a rundown on what you're running at the moment.
Yeah, so that is my hot dog rifle, as it's affectionately known. Is a 6mm Creedmoor. On an impact action with a Swan barrel in a KRG whiskey, and it's 6mm Creedmoor. Did I say that? I can't remember.
Yeah, you had to say Creedmoor one more time. You couldn't help yourself.
And then the Creedmoor ferry pops up. Is that the deal?
Yeah, I think so.
Perfect. Still waiting.
I'm really resisting right now, saying that I'm also running a Creedmoor, but I'm not going to say it.
Don't mention that.
No one would.
No,
know.
I wouldn't mention that. No one.
So what components are you running?
So at the moment, I've loaded 50 rounds for it. That's all I've shot through. It was 108 ELDs from Hornady with 2209, and I started at 40 grains, and that's where I just loaded up 50 rounds. And because of that, I really just wanted to get started and do that. I made the grave mistake. See, this is how much attention and how long it's been. I went and bought primers. I'm like, everyone's running out of primers. I better go and hook up a couple of thousand primers. Went down to the shop, bought primers. I'm like, I just need some larger rifle primers, and away we go.
But you were running Lapua Brass.
Yeah, then I realised when I went to reload, I'm like, no, that's a dumb mistake. This is small primer territory, and I've bought large primers, and luckily enough, I had about 100 left.
Wow.
So
okay.
It's so easy to not think these things through, because back when the last stuff I would have reloaded for, with the exception of the 338, was my 260. That was the last sort of comp gun I ran, and then I also was running a 308 sort of similar time. So large rifles, you just walk down and do that. Yeah. The only thing I used my small rifle primers were for the occasional 2 to 3 sort of bulk batches that I would do, and so very rare for me to have small rifle primers. That was often just factory ammo, and so I didn't even think that that was what I was needing. So
because you could have used either, like if you went the Hornady brass option for the 6 Creed, obviously that's large rifle primer.
Yeah, I assume so.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. It is. Yeah. Well, their 6.5 Creedmoor is large rifle primer, so I'm assuming their 6 Creed is as well.
Hornady's the large one, and so I didn't even think. And maybe in my defence, I grabbed Hornady brass first.
Yeah, before you grabbed the Lapua,
and then went, "What am I doing? I've got Lapua brass." So I grabbed that. Yeah. So I can't even remember the timing if I bought the primers when I had the Hornady brass aside. I'm not sure. Maybe I'll use that as my excuse.
You run back out the shed and see what you got left.
Check it
out. Or I'll go home with your large rifle primers.
Yeah, well, I've got to see if I can get some small rifle primers. Otherwise, I might be getting the hammer out and getting creative.
I might have some in the shed. I might have some that came with my whole heap of reloading gear.
There you go. Nice. So
that's cool. Cool.
Yeah, so it's an interesting journey at the moment, and I'm looking forward to listening to this and being able to sort of filter a lot of that knowledge to sort of cross-check the stuff that I remember, maybe the elements that I've forgotten, and make sure that the process I'm thinking about doing are actually going to pay off.
We had a quick discussion yesterday about like expander mandrels, and you were sort of questioning me about, why I was doing that process or how I thought that was important. And so that was even something there that maybe has, I don't know, I wouldn't say it's changed because it's been happening for a long time, but maybe is becoming more prevalent in how people do things. Like the game, what I'm kind of getting at is the game is changing and updating, and information's becoming more available. So there's probably things now that are different, or there's top guys doing things that are different now than when you last reloaded. So it'll be interesting to see what bits and pieces you add to your reloading that you maybe didn't do previously.
I think in the competition world, things follow trends. And so it comes about in many ways where a couple of guys who are top shooters who start, getting really good results, everyone wants to know what they are doing. And then starts, they're doing this process. Oh, let's copy that process and let's start, and they're obviously doing that process for a reason. And then, 6 months, 12 months, 18 months later, someone else starts winning matches and you're like, oh, what are they doing? And a lot of guys jump around and sort of keep trying to keep up with whomever's doing. It's the same with gear. It's the same with optics. It's the same with sort of every element. And so people often change. And I think it's really important to sort of find a process that you like. If something new comes around, what I like about your mentality about it, if something new comes around or something old comes back around again, is that you'll test it and you'll check it and you'll see, hey, all right, this process here, does that actually improve what I'm doing? And I think that's really important because a lot of people just jump onto the trend
without testing it against what they're already doing.
Yeah, and they're like, oh no, there's got to be an element, and it'd be interesting to know, but there's got to be an element that's mental, with reloading, because there is certainly some element, or there are certainly some processes that you do that because you've always done them and they've never not worked, that you just do because that's part of the
like weighing cases and weighing projectiles.
Have you tested it?
No, I haven't.
Because
I took the option of going like, oh, someone else has told me that I don't need to do this really lengthy process, so I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
All the painful stuff I tried to find answers for to get rid of it.
Well, I suspect at some point you'll interview someone who swears by it.
Yeah. And that's cool because then I look forward to hearing their reasons why.
Yeah, I think that would be good. So there are all these things that come around. Well, I've forgotten how we got here, but there is expanded mandrel side of things like that. Those things go around, and they're not to say, and that's the joy of reloading is there's such a wide variety of things and processes you can do that it'll be interesting for you to find out all of them and all the details and how they work.
Yeah, and like you said, it is very trend heavy. And what I was reading and looking at, everyone was like swearing by, Redding S type, you need a bushing die. And I bought dies before I'd even actually played with one, before I'd even loaded around. So I didn't even really know what a die did, you know what I mean? So I'm reading these things going, I need this specific die. But then when you get it in your hands and you start playing with it, you actually realize the function of what everything's doing. Okay, all that does is that just squishes the brass back down to like a size that will fit in my chamber, and it's got to do the same thing consistently each time. You start to go, oh, well, yeah, like I get the point of this little bushing allows me to not, over crush the neck or whatever. I'm not working the brass too much, but maybe it's getting me a little bit more concentricity on the neck or whatever. But then you start to go, a normal standard sizing die would still do exactly the same job. And some people, like in some cases, it may do it better. Like there's some, I think Forster make a really good, just normal straight non-bushing die that a lot of people swear by. They reckon it's super consistent. And so then I started to go, well, shit, I just spent more money than I needed to on something. I could have gone a simpler option. So yeah, you're right. You do catch on to, like, you got to be careful. You don't just jump on that bandwagon or in that forum where everyone's sort of being really vocal about what they need or what they swear by. You got to kind of sift through that and go, well, what that would be nice, or but versus what do I actually need? And so I think that's, that with the Projectile Warehouse YouTube stuff, that's sort of what we're going to explore, whether you're going to have those two worlds of like, well, this is what you actually need just to kind of make around and get it down range. And then this is the other side of it where it's like, these are the complexities of where you could go if you wanted to get into it. So how are you throwing your powder at the moment? That's because there's some dudes that really I'm not going to say caught up, because it is important and I pay a lot of attention to it, on standard deviation and extreme spread and finding a node, like a velocity node. There's a lot of people that is the be all and end all. And I put a lot of time and energy into that. I'm throwing my chronograph on my rifle way too often. I should just shoot it more rather than check like, oh, is this batch the same as the last batch? And it is. Just trust yourself. But it's still kind of nice to know. But like for you, what are you doing at the moment? Because a lot of dudes are really, that's a big topic.
All sorts of things. Yeah. So I currently run a Hornady, I'm going to get this name wrong, but the Auto Charge Pro, the latest sort of auto thrower from Hornady. And we did a video with Plushy. I'm sure you interview it sometime. And he's got one of the, I think, a V3 auto trickler. And we put them side by side, and no surprises, the one that cost 3 times as much smashed the Hornady. It was much more consistent. We only did a few rounds, although we've done a few since, and it is definitely better, but it's also 3 times the price, and it's just out of the budget. Just flat out of the budget for the time being. And
the amount that you're currently shooting at the moment probably doesn't justify it. Like, you're going to try and shoot a lot more this year, but
it's the plan.
You're probably not going to be shooting as much as Plushy. I wouldn't say so.
Probably not. But certainly the plan. But even that aside, like, just the couple of $1,000 versus $700 is much. Much easier to digest at the moment. And so it seems fine. And probably one of the real factors is I don't shoot as well as Plushy. So I'm probably not going to see the benefit that perhaps spending the extra money to get that couple of percent or 8% or 0.5% refinement over what I'm doing. I might have possibly have more fires. But we're really early days with it. And so my plan is to load several hundred and then get that thing sort of worn in, I guess, if there's a wearing process with them, and then put it up against Plushies for a much more in-depth test than the one we did, which was only about a handful of rounds, or powder charges that we did. So I'm looking forward to seeing how it goes. Across a longer period of time, keeping the data on it. So far I'm happy. I used to use one of the original Hornady ones, and they weren't great. There was they overthrew a lot, and there was a lot of variation in them. They seemed fine once you play with some settings, but this one at the moment I haven't had to touch any settings, and I think I've had one overthrow out of 100 or something from that. So so far so good. I have used dual charge masters previously.
Yeah.
That was my old rig. So two
running two charge masters. Yeah.
Charge masters, and they were good. That was quick. And I have certainly done the powder dropping and trickling and all that. I think I've done sort of most of the variations. Yeah. So.
That's cool. And a lot of that is like just time, isn't it? Like I'm still on a beam scale. Like I said, I'm running the beam scale and trickling up to my charge weight, and it's been super consistent and really precise. But I'm now wanting to now that I've got the load and I know how to sort of tune the load. I'm like, sweet, like now I'm dialed. Now I go, all right, well now I want to make 300 of them, and I go, oh, the hours that's going to take me to do that with the sort of sitting there trickling each one up and watching the beam closely and making sure I'm landing it right in the middle each time. So it's all. You can make really good ammunition without those fancy products, but then they speed things up and maybe make things a bit more user friendly for a lot of people.
there's a definite correlation between the amount you spend on your gear and the speed that you can achieve quality results at.
Yeah.
And so you can certainly buy some cheaper stuff and still match the speed, but the quality drops off.
Yeah.
Or you can spend less and make as good, if not better rounds.
Yeah.
But it
The
takes
speed drops off.
it's much more time intensive. Whereas there is this sort of pinnacle, if that's what you're chasing, where you can make ultra accurate rounds, but you have spent a ton of money to do it quickly. Yeah. And that's where things like the AMP annealers with the auto sort of loaders, plus a garrote trimmer, which is a super quick trimmer. You're talking 3 seconds sort of per case, plus your auto tricklers. Guys run multiple auto tricklers.
You can achieve all of those same things with different cheaper components, but it's going to take you twice as long.
More than twice as long. It's going to take you a lot longer. So it's there certainly is a balance there. Well and truly. It's
something we sort of just wanted to, like, if there's people listening to the podcast that are thinking about getting into reloading or new, another thing that we really wanted to enforce was like just encouraging people to have a go. Like that was a big thing about your Impact Dynamic podcasts and stuff that were, you were always encouraging people to just run what they brung was as far as guns, and that's how I got started. I had a Remington 7600, which is a pump action 308 with a little 1-7 scope on it, and I thought I had to have a new rifle before I could shoot long range. And then I realized, well, no, if I get the data on what my bullets are doing, projectiles are doing in this gun, I can take this gun out to distance, maybe not that well or on a small target, and so that encouraged me to get out there and have a crack with the 308 first before I went the route that I ended up going for the PRS setup. But it's the same thing for reloading. Like if your dad has an old, press sitting around that needs to be cleaned off or whatever, don't think that that's not going to work, because it will. Go get the components that you already have there. Maybe buy one or two, bits and pieces to help you out. Take precautions, obviously, because you're dealing with dangerous things, but just get into it. Like you can get pretty proficient at it pretty quickly if you're willing to do the research and take the time and look at how all these components work and yeah, just have a crack. Sort of what we wanted to say.
Absolutely agree with that, and I think your story, which we're about to do another video on, actually, some of the stuff how you got into all the shooting bits and pieces you're into. So look out for that on the Impact. Here's a cross promotion, the Impact Dynamics channel. Check that one out with Taylor. But yeah, looking forward to it. So I'm excited to see what comes out of your podcasting journey, mate. I'm excited to see what your curiosity about reloading, where that leads to, and the people you chat with. And yeah, I'm keen. I think I'm going to learn a ton out of it. I think there's a few guys you've got lined up who certainly they'll be back several times, because they can go super deep on some stuff, and that's where I think it's wonderful to have this sort of longer format to be able to deep dive some stuff and speak to some better reloaders than me, who will really give you a lot to sink your teeth into.
Yeah, for sure. And if there's anyone that people want us to get a hold of, that'd be cool. Reach out, find a way to get in contact with myself or Rusty, and hey, I know a guy that makes this amazing ammo or swears by this weird voodoo magic that he does, and it works every single time. We want to hear about his weird voodoo magic.
Oh yeah, that sounds good. That sounds good. And then also, have you done anything with pistol reloading or any of that sort of stuff?
No, I haven't.
It'd be interesting to delve into some of that world as well.
Yeah,
because to give the full complete picture, because there's
I've had some, like I was telling you, the guy that used to reload my my hunting rifle, which I'm still shooting his reloads, by the way, because I have a whole heap of them still there that I haven't got through yet. He shoots pistol, so I've watched him reload pistol. I've watched him make his own cast, like lead projectiles and things.
That's another area completely.
Totally. And we've actually he made up a batch of cast lead 308 projectiles for me to run through my 308 at a reduced load so they wouldn't just melt themselves down the barrel. But I shot them as sort of practice rounds early on when I had my rifle. He made them up and was like, here you go, use these for plinking or whatever. And I don't think we took any game with them. I can't remember. It was quite a while ago. But yeah, that's a whole nother world, making your own bullets in a,
It sounds like all sorts of things are on the table. Well, all the best with it.
All right, just wrapping up, guys. Thanks heaps for listening to the first episode of From the Bench. We're going to get more in depth, and we're going to find out some great things on this journey. So I'm glad you guys are listening. This was presented by Projectile Warehouse. They're really helping us out with being able to put this on and make this happen. So yeah, follow those guys, get on board with this, and like and subscribe, all of the things, and share it around to your friends. And if you've got questions, hit us up, find a way to contact us, and we'll try and answer those questions as best we can. Thank you.